Hello, everybody. Good morning, or afternoon, or whatever it happens to be, and welcome to the thing I've been teasing for months now. This is one man, one goal, one vision. The OV mod recently got updated. Ended up making a lot of this a lot more difficult, as if it wasn't difficult enough already. And we're gonna be going for some interesting stuff here. Like I said, I've been routing this for months now. I still don't know that it's actually fully possible, but I do know that we can at least do pretty good here, so let's give this a go. So if you didn't know, the rules are going to be the same as last time. We're going to be doing One-Eyed Night Slayer, Wheelbreaker, all done. The hell was that? Anyway, all optional dungeons, minus Farampa, because honestly, if you can do the others, Farampa doesn't really matter too much. And then, we're... going to be going through San Bronsa, going to be doing, Pirate's Graveyard you already have to do as part of Coda. So I guess it's really just San Bronsa that's the extra. Now, the answers to these questions will, we're looking for strength. If you didn't know, each of these gives you a different stat and everything else. Well, it gives you a different mix of stats, but generally speaking, if you want to get strength, which is what we're trying to do in this case, you sound like a stereotypical strongman at every possibility. So like right there, what do they owe their, strength to? Oh, it was me, I was the strong. Like right here, you accidentally do a cheating, and you just go yoink, they're mine now, so that makes you strong somehow. That kind of makes you a dick, but, how do you define victory? You beat them real good. There we go. And I think preserving gives you Vit. But anyway, I've tried running Vit for this one. It's not enough to push you through. You need, the entire run just basically comes down to taking pieces off the board. How do you bring two clans together? By force? Basically, we're going to be redoing this till we get about 37 is the ideal. Let's see, what power will it hold? Let's go for order, because we want about 37 strength. That's one of the higher values you can get for it. Just basically, we need to have a character that by the end of Chapter 1 can be one-shotting units. And bear in mind, this is a lot more difficult than it was before. There's no background stat gaining. It's a lot more difficult to get a hold of certain pieces of equipment. Just in general, it's a tougher situation. All your enemies are a lot more viable and all that kind of thing. So, first funny thing, by the way, the other day I was sitting around at a craft fair with my wife, and I was putzing around trying to, just kind of out of curiosity, just went ahead and turned on some cheats for this one, because I was curious what would happen if they died in the intro. Funnily enough, despite the fact that it says that the victory condition is to kill lands, which you can't actually pull up here, so I guess it's not the official victory condition. Also, bye. We don't need any of you. But yeah, funnily enough, they're not protected from damage at all, because they never expected you to be able to do that. But yeah, so not only that, don't trust these people, because if you kill them off, the entire war just peacefully resolves itself. You just basically show up in Sanji and can't go anywhere. Still can't trust this guy, because clearly they just caused the entire war. So nothing happens. There's just no story, there's no anything, and they actually all count as unknown. They're not even Zenobians. So that basically tells me that they basically have a completely different version that they use for the first fight, as opposed to the 3 or so other versions that show up later. So there we go. I got 37 or 36 strength. That's not bad. Unfortunately, some of those points went into int, but we got some avoidance, we got some vit, we got some resistance. It's not bad. It'll work. So now, first optimization that we're going to want here, we're going to want pretty much everybody. There we go. These guys can have a weapon so they can put out some damage. There you go. And keep your bow. Actually, you're going to go ahead and get your spear back, because he comes in with a spear and short bow now. This guy's going to go ahead and get that def ring. He's going to keep his stuff, because what we're going for is essentially power leveling the warrior here. So I'm going to go ahead and save it, just in case this goes wrong, because it absolutely can go wrong. So there we go. Let's go over to Almarca here, as you do. Skip through that real quick, skip through the dialogue. Now yeah, this can go very wrong very quickly. Just because, again, this is one vision. Everything hits harder, and all your Pretty much everybody's more durable, everybody hits harder, just everybody's more competent in general. As you'd expect. They feel more like people, and that's really why I love this mod. So here's the thing. First of all, we need our healer gone, so Castro's going to be the first to go. The Lombardia is ridiculously overpowered, though. It'll one-shot basically everything. So what we want, even though background base stat leveling isn't really a thing, what we want is to just have a higher level to be able to pick off some of the earlier fights. Just have a little bit more, I guess, a bit of a bonus would be the best way to put it. Now, thankfully, because the Lombardia is a one-handed sword, gets a pretty hefty accuracy bonus, which is absolutely busted in the early game, so almost nobody can dodge this. Only if somebody has a full, like if they have a light armor and light shield, they'll have about a 70% chance from the front, but still, like, compared with everything else, it's absolutely overpowered. So yeah, that's the point. And this is actually, if you didn't know, it's a completely different Lombardia from the one that you find later in the game. They needed to make a completely different one in order for him to be able to equip it at this point, because for some reason they didn't feel like force equipping it on him. I guess they kind of felt it would have been a bit of a giveaway. And they couldn't leave it with the level 1 thing on there, because it would have been absolutely busted for their whole leveling system. So they ultimately just made 2 versions. Pardon the weird noise for a second there, I just had to scratch my ear. So he's going to do his whole casting thing, yada yada yada, let all of them run up and get close, maybe get some of these guys taken out. Eventually the goal is to take out everybody except for Vice. Because then we get a few extra... Well, actually, you know what, we might end up taking out Vice anyway, because we get about the same levels out of the whole thing. But we get more skill points if we... yeah, I think we're just going to let Vice go away, too. Because we get just enough skill points to be able to pick up counter hits and weapon proficiency, which is what we really want to be starting with. Because you want that level advantage in order to be able to take on some of the early game enemies. They don't start off with any accessories, so you automatically have a pretty hefty stat bonus over them. But on top of that, you just really want to make sure that they're taking every opportunity to train that you can. Because what we need is rank anywhere between 6 to 8 by the end of Chapter 1 in order to be able to continue the run. We need to have picked up Terror Knights by that point. We need to have trained up Terror Knights, and we basically need Warrior and Terror Knight for everything up until we get to Dragoon. And the Terror Knight in particular has to make it to level 28. So we're gonna be power leveling that thing real good. So we basically use that for the story as much as possible, then switch back over to the Warrior for any remaining fights. Then we do Chapter 3 Neutral, and it's at that point, like, this is the part that got me so excited here, because that particular thing, there's exactly one character that you can get to a high enough level that you can actually cheese the leveling system to get a full suit of, or just a full set rather, of endgame equipment way earlier than you're supposed to be able to, because the big problem I kept running into with routing this run was getting a hold of an elemental weapon, something that would match one of the finishers, on top of the fact of just having extra damage for the endgame. Because part of the problem is you have to run the heavier version. So, for example, the Silver Slayer, you end up just basically that whole tree is more or less what you're going to end up needing for most of the run. So puts you into a bit of an awkward situation where you have to sacrifice accuracy a good chunk of the time until you get an elemental option. And you can't really scale up and get that extra damage off your elemental weapons if you're, well, if you're essentially worrying about even hitting anything, period. So you can basically cheese level advantage to be able to make up for that accuracy loss for a while. Eventually proficiency can take over for that once you get to around Chapter 3. But really, it's that getting that full suit of endgame equipment that will make the big difference there. So yeah, he can come in with like a full worm scale set, as well as a lightning two-hander. Which the ideal is to actually get the Gilgamesh, which is the initial wind two-hander. And then switch over to the Notos later down the line, because we're going to have to pick up all of the Wind God weapons anyway. Which, for the purposes of that, I'll allow some cheesing for the purposes of the Wind God weapons, just because I really don't feel like redoing entire fights for a single drop, which I'm pretty sure anyone can understand. So yeah, we'll go ahead and do that. Now, these guys are almost totally toast anyway, so I'm just going to go ahead and walk over here, start working on these archers, let these guys on the bottom sort each other out. So he's going to go run off. The guy on the bottom... Actually, no. I expected Gildas to take out that guy on the bottom. Oh well, doesn't matter. As you can see, he's a pretty tough boy. Don't really have to worry about him. He's going to do a pretty alright job. And yeah, if you don't get any points in Vit, this fight can be a little bit of a problem, but it really doesn't take much to be surviving it. So we're going to go over here. We're going to take out this one, because she is currently the highest source of damage. Unfortunately, didn't quite get the finish, but oh well. Hopefully we'll get a lucky crit at some point. Might have to step away and heal slightly, or might just cut and run, actually. Might be the best way to go. Come on, give me some blocks. Gonna need some blocks here. There are several points in this run where we're basically going to have to rely on being able to block and parry like an absolute crazy person, just so you know. Alright, so take him out, just because he's got a little bit more health. So next up, we want to make sure they don't get a front attack, so we're going to go ahead and go here. Actually, let's see, can we get out of his movement range? Not really. Exactly, not really. So we're going to go ahead and go over here. Make sure that we're at least close to those archers. Yeah, there we go. Thank you for not taking that 49% block, but whatever. Oh, boy. You just played yourself there, Denim. Thank you. Thank you for pulling that back. Alright. So I go for that one. If we take that route on the left between those rocks, we should be able to take a hit from the front, hopefully dodge it, take a turn to heal, because that'll essentially prevent him from getting around to his back by any means. Please don't block that. Thank you. Funnily enough, archers are a threat in this one. Not so much because they can actually do as much damage, which, funnily enough, heavy crossbows and siege bows will still hurt real good. But the funny part ends up becoming where, yeah, they just end up firing piddly shots and they end up turning it around, and that's the actual danger. But so far, so good. And we can slightly out-heal him, so there we go. That should be safe. He doesn't have a finisher, so we can take out one archer, then we can take out the other one, and then we can take out him. Reason being, there's a chance for them to drop some cards. We'll need to save the healing items as much as possible, but either way, I'm just going to go ahead and use one more here. It's not that they're terribly needed here. That I probably would have been safe without it, because I need at least 3 for the next part. Because you end up getting a little bit more overwhelmed. Alright, so let's go ahead and get our first cut off on this guy. That sucks. Kind of needed that to hit, so I'm actually kind of glad that we got that extra healing item off. Alright, so... Please miss. No, he's not going to miss. Alright. At least there's no stagger currently. Alright, so let's just keep charging on here. Now, there's a chance that she'll drop a card. It's not very good, but this is one of those few moments where it's actually safe to go for the cards. A lot of the, like, bear in mind, we're only getting a few points higher than we actually got right now. Even Tynmouth becomes dangerous very quickly. So, you know, we'll get what we'll get. But any opportunity that there is to take out an extra unit is worth going for. Man, what a dickhead. He basically went and took an... took a more unlikely hit in order to just go and steal that bag. And the AI will do that. They absolutely will do that. So yeah. I believe it's because they're supposed to try to go for the cards. But yeah, if they see an opportunity to take a drop, they'll absolutely take that over something more practical. Oh, come on now. You gotta be kidding me. Oh, you absolute dickhead. Okay. Well, that sucks. That happens. That will happen. Like, that should give you a good idea of what to expect for this run. So, realistically, I'll probably just go for taking out Bapol this time. And I already did the resort, right? Yeah. Alright, so we're all good there. Let's go ahead and move forward here. You don't get any points from that first fight, so you can't pick up proficiencies yet. I wouldn't want to go for one-handers anyway, but... you know, it would just be something there. Not to mention, it would probably just be a horrible idea at this point anyhow. Alright, so let's do all this over again, as you do. Gotta have those nice expectations set early. Like, I kid you not, it took, hell, like 3 days, I think, to get past the, the first fight with, what's-his-face? Why can't I not remember people's names today? When I was doing Law Route, because basically it needs to be neutral and then it needs to be Law, and it took forever to get past Hector. Just because, yeah, that guy comes in with some skills, and that's the problem. Like, to be able to survive once everything scales up to New Game is the real problem there. But there is a way around that. So the full route, without, like, kind of skipping a lot of things, because there's going to be dozens and dozens of steps here, but the full route, more or less, is go through this using about 3 classes. Go through neutral the first time around. Essentially use what's his face, Diebold, to get that full suit of equipment. So that'll just be kind of like our tier 2, more or less. We go from standard garbage going up to a full elemental set. Being able to aug lightning on that sword will end up giving us a bit of a bonus. So we'd be able to get extra damage off that. So whatever level we happen to be there, ideally 28, but we might be able to pull off something sooner than that. Might end up using Tynmouth to fine-tune the level to be sure, but again, we'll see how it goes, because it's something that can vary a decent bit. Unfortunately, he can't spawn in with any like the Gilgamesh, for example. If he could, I would friggin' power level the hell out of it to somehow make that happen. Now, the thing is, the way that the scaling goes in the game, it doesn't all go all the way up to 50. Actually, most of it doesn't. So the best way for us to actually handle it is to get that endgame equipment, which allows for fighting endgame enemies, and then essentially use Tynmouth to go all the way up to 50, and then still keep that level advantage for a decent chunk of the rest of the game. Essentially, with proficiencies, augments, and parry, that would still give a decent fighting chance against most things, and with some very tricky strategies throughout through the entire thing, it's theoretically possible. There's a lot of times when if RNG doesn't go our way, then just kaput on the spot. But still, it's possible. It's theoretically possible. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this guy early. We're going to end up losing a few of the friendlies here pretty quick. The archers seem to be doing a good job of taking them out. But this guy will go ahead and clear, or these two will go ahead and clear the field a little bit, so that we can hopefully have an easier time here. Alright, I was expecting those two to hit each other, but no such luck, no such luck. Now, if you're wondering, why two-handers of all the different weapons, it's mostly because of the specific things that I need to go for. Because if you want really good single-hit damage, they're usually the way to go. Like, for example, hammers will do better against heavier units, but will be less impressive against lighter ones. And despite the fact that heavier units are, generally speaking, going to be the bigger problem throughout the run, using something like that can very consistently finish off lighter units with relatively few TP and all that kind of thing. Like, if you can be in the 100 to 150 range and finish off a unit without any kind of fuss, good. Like, that's a solid win right there. With a hammer, they might be able to do that, but they need more to be able to finish off the lighter ones. Not to mention they're a little bit slower. So, the stun from them is very useful. The knockback can be, but I figured that to be the more, or rather the RT delay. But I figured that to be the more useful thing. Just highest damage of a single hit, because if you get augs and whatever else and you stack that on top of what they can already do against heavy units, in some cases they still can do the hammer thing. So it's tricky, but it's doable, let's put it that way. So there we go, that's him gone too. So yeah, it takes some effort. Not to mention, as far as routing them out goes, there's no real way to trick a hammer into appearing. You can trick that two-hander using Diebold. He's the only one that you can actually have a class that you have access to scale up before you get there that can come up with that kind of thing. If I went for spears, it would be a lot easier to use Yunin for that, and I've actually used them for that in other runs. But the thing is, the spear doesn't have Spiral Scourge or anything else that can actually one-shot anything. It's bar none one of the best DPS things if you're using a full team. But yeah, no. As far as single fighting goes, it's just not really gonna fly. Not to mention it has defensively, it's one of the best because it's got that extra parry bonus and everything. But yeah, it would just be asking for trouble to try to go about it that route. Not to mention it would be locked into certain elements because it ends up splitting off into different versions later. Thankfully, there are short versions in the late game, but still. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and finish off Vice here, and then we're going to finish off that Archer, and then we'll be all good. So the interesting thing that you do see here is when you have AI characters that you can't control, essentially you can become invisible to the AI. So yeah, they'll always target something weaker if they can, because usually your main character is going to be pretty dang strong. Now, because his base stats aren't necessarily stronger, they still will target them if they've got nothing else to target. Like, they'll never get to the point that they just give up, like they used to in vanilla. But still. So we'll go ahead and take out that Archer. No cards dropped this time, unfortunately. There will be a couple items that will be very useful. Like, for example, the mead will be very handy for the purposes of this one. We're actually going to need that in a few fights. Just one of the ways that you can get around that whole one-shotting situation is if you put Breach on somebody and then you put Strengthen on yourself and then use a maxed-out finisher, that will finish off almost anything in the game. It's like... That'll do the job a good bit of the time. If you're wondering how I'm going to handle the last boss, there's actually a neat little trick I found out a while ago to be able to one-shot the clones. So I have plans for that, don't worry. Actually, the main problem with this run is the fact that healing is very difficult to do. Because right here, this class right here is the best healing he's going to get up until the end game. 150 is where it caps out. The healing seed is all he can do. So, alright, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to need our two-handers at some point. Might as well just pick that up now. If you're wondering why, you can sometimes get hit by two-handers here, which will increase that skill a little bit. Now, as far as stuff that we'll be using later, we're going to skip Mighty Strike. It seems like it would be useful, but it's not going to help us here. But yeah, we're gonna end up picking up Counter Hit next after this fight. And then that'll give us what we need to get fully started here. So I'm just going to go ahead and save it right there. So we've already jumped up to level 4. This should get us up to level 8. And then after this, the run will be ready to begin. And unlike vanilla, the run goes from the very start to the very finish. There is no moment in between of like, let's just grind for a billion years, because, yeah, no. Every step is calculated. Every little move is calculated. It's a tricky run. And yeah, all that just makes me all the more excited for it, because all the routing I was going through, like, every time I made a little bit of progress, I was like, yeah, this is like pulling water from a stone. I love it! Which is funny, because in a lot of cases I wouldn't like that kind of thing, but it's not RNG that makes the difference. It's always pulling out these little tricks, you know? It makes sense. It makes sense, so it feels good. Alright, so there goes Canopus. And yeah, if you're wondering, pretty much everyone's going to be dead. I'm not going to bother picking up the entire Law team until we go the Law route. I might as well just pick them up all in one go. I might get some extra goodies out of it. So there we go. Let's finish you off. Goodbye. Get out of here. Now, there has to be some way to set their initial level, because these guys come in at level 2. So with that in place, I'm hoping there'll be something that the Rakes can figure out down the road, as far as adjusting their levels and that kind of thing to make a bit more sense. Alright, so we've got that there. Gonna go punch Edgar. Love how he doesn't even have a weapon, but it doesn't matter. Punch is almost as hard as a sword. Oh well, oh well. These guys are pretty strong by comparison. Because in the low levels, all this stuff will matter. But once we get to about level 7, for the most part, levels will only matter for accuracy and that kind of thing. Accuracy and resistance are really the main ones that stick out. Or I guess it's more evasion than accuracy. Well, no, it has to be accuracy that makes the difference. Because now that I think about it, like, once you get to, what's it? It's like, once you start getting past about a 5-level difference, debuffs still hit reliably. Like, even going up to a 10-level difference, debuffs will still hit all the friggin' time, unless they're not supposed to. But yeah, for the most part, you don't end up running into those situations where they're just immune to everything. Well, not for the most part. I mean, literally, you just don't see that. The one time that we might see that is the one reason that I need to go collect all the Wind God weapons. Because for the end game, especially for the last fight. You need to be able to resist a lot of different things. So their finishers come with Shackle, they come with Envenom, they come with Petrify, and that fight, there's no way to equip enough items with decent enough abilities on them to be able to actually win that fight without the Fire Crest, as far as I've tested. Because you can get Stop Ward, you can get Petrify Ward, you can get Stun Ward, you can get all that stuff on there, but that equipment is not going to have the defense you need or the evasion that you need in order to pull that fight off. Because you can get the Priest Pants; those will do a solid job of those have the Stop Ward on them. Those will do a pretty solid job of protecting you from that. For Petrify Ward, you can get that on one of the weapons. For what's it for? I forget it. With all the different wards, they're like you can get a full ward equipment set, but still, like if you've seen that whip shenanigans video, that's basically the most resistant setup I could come up with the equipment that was on hand. So that should give you an idea. Like that thing basically relied on the fact that the whip could do a crapload of damage in a relatively short amount of time. The downside of all that, though, is that when it comes to being able to successfully go through the entire game like that, you need to be able to level up augments. And one of my first plans was actually using that same build, and just basically sitting in Chapter 1, turning on Augment Dark, and then essentially killing off Nibith's dudes until there was nothing but Dark Ghosts, like Word of Pain Ghosts, rather. And so the idea was just to sit there with full healing items, and just sit there and get hit over and over and over and over and over. And that kind of worked. You could get to about rank 3 before the healing items ran out. But the problem was there was no decent way to get a decent enough level by that point, or to be able to level up whips in the first chapter to really make that happen. There really was no reliable way to get a whip drop. So it basically would have resulted in a situation where I was training Claws early on to kind of have a defensive option, then would have switched over to Whip. But it didn't work. It didn't work at all because, yeah, again, it was Claw and Shield that made that made the durability of that build work. Like it was heavy shield, heavy armor, heavy helmet, and all that kind of thing. Almost took that guy out. Don't want to be doing that. But we got an Emperor card here. Perfect. Definitely like to see that. So any health bonuses that we get... Oh, what is that crap? +1? Friggin' ripoff. Yeah, it goes from 1 to 5. Or I think actually from 1 to 7, if I recall correctly. But still, kind of got ripped off there. He's just over here like, I don't get it. Why can't I hurt this guy? He's too beefy. He's got protagonist powers. His Denim's there, just rubbing his necklace like, man, I can't believe I've had this super OP item this whole time. Like, it's funny, he literally starts off with one of the most OP items in the game. It's hilarious. So, yeah, its stats are a bit buffed from vanilla, so it's got twice as much luck, I believe twice as much health, plus an attack bonus, plus the usual bonuses that you'd expect off it. But the best part, and the reason that I'm never taking this off until we get the Fire Crest, is right there, Stun Ward. So one of the most annoying debuffs in the game, he's just straight up immune to. I feel like most folks don't seem to realize that. There we go. Got a nice dagger archer here. Like to see that. It's just a cool little detail. Ooh, we got a Vit. Or no, that's a Chariot. We got a Strength. Okay, that'll work. Give me them strengths. We'll see if that was just enough to tap it up to 37 there. That'd be nice. Because literally any bonus we can get to Strength is amazing. So if you didn't know, the reason that Strength is the one that I go for there, yes, it scales up his damage. Dexterity will also scale up his damage, but it also gives a defensive bonus. So basically, Strength gives power and defense, whereas Dex gives power and accuracy. So we're going to need both, but it's nice to have there. All right. So the Order of One Goal. There's only one reasonable name for this, of course. Alright, the Order of One Goal, yes. He's like, I think I should be a little bit concerned, but oh well. Alright, we skip some story, do some stuff. Oh, you want to join? No. Get the hell out of here. By the way, funny thing right here, because apparently folks didn't see this before. The female well, hell, just the Amazon that joins you here. She's got fists and axes for her skills, but oftentimes spawns with a short sword. It's something that that happened all the time in vanilla as well. Didn't think things were that bad. Well, you got one dude saying that he's going to do the entire thing himself. I don't know what are your thoughts on that matter. All right, get out of here. We don't need a healer. We got friggin' grapes. Gonna eat some friggin' berries and whatever and get all super healthy like. Eat some seeds. Alright. Tap us up to 37? Not quite, but if we get another card, we will. So we're gonna go ahead and get our longsword here. We're actually not gonna use that. We're gonna get our full mail set. Another nice little bonus that we got here. So, next up, we're going to go ahead and pick up that Warblade. And there we go. We have stuff that we shouldn't even have yet. So if you end up scaling up those warriors there, their weapon stays the same, but their armor changes. So there we go. Let's go ahead and pick up a counter hit. Actually, yeah, we would have been fine if we let Vice live. Ah, well, whatever. So we'll pick up counter hit, and then once we hit rank 2, we're going to pick up Augment Air. But our next thing here is going to be right here, Field Alchemy. So Field Alch is the next one. Then we're going to want Poison Ward. Then we're going to want Vigorous Attack. It's actually probably Vigorous is the biggest one to go for, because this makes a huge difference early on. Makes you functionally immune to melee, for the most part. Because, yeah, you're not supposed to have it this early. It's a level 10 thing, but we're already at 6, so there we go. So there we go. That'll be part 1, and I will see you guys in the next one. Thank you for stopping by, and see you soon. Take care.